Stand up.
Hey there. Thank you very much for pressing play on today's episode of Stand Up. Joining me on the show today, as they do almost every Friday, it's Christian Finnegan and Ophira Eisenberg with a hilarious and thought-provoking conversation, as we always do. I think you're really going to like this one. And public defender from New Orleans, public defenders Derwyn Bunton, who has joined me several times over the past year, thanks to our old friend Barkdale Hortenstein Jr., who is a longtime listener and turned me on to all these amazing public defenders in New Orleans. Derwyn and I had a great talk, or I asked him a bunch of, I think, pretty good questions that relate to Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson and what it means to have someone who's a former public defender, much less a black woman, on the high court. Derwyn was great, as always. I think you're going to like both of my conversations. Thanks, everybody, for all their feedback on yesterday's show. So much amazing feedback about our conversation with four black women who are longtime listeners and have become good friends of mine: Kimberly, Vicky, Francis, and Karen. Awesome conversation. If you haven't heard it yet, go listen to that, because I've been getting such kind, thoughtful reviews, and ladies are feeling really good about it as well. Also, thank you for hanging out at the Hangout last night. Yeah, I'm taping this before again, like I did last week, so hopefully it was awesome. I mean, it always is. If you are not a subscriber, you're missing out. Go to standupwithpete.com right now, join our community, and just support the podcast, because I need your support. I need subscriptions to keep this going. So sign up now, patreon.com/Pete Dominic, or just go to standupwithpete.com and you can sign up there. All right. Well, how's your week been? I started a retaining wall outside the shed. I'm finishing up the landscaping around the shed, and I'm really excited about the project I'm into. I've got my seeds going, so I've been keeping really busy, and of course, work has been very busy as well. But the girls are doing good. Val's doing good. Parents are doing good. And it's great to hear that so many of you are figuring out, navigating your way through this crazy time that we're in. And if you're not, reach out. Let's talk. There's always a safe space here on the Discord platform, at our Hangouts, and right here on the air if you want to talk something out. I've done that with a lot of listeners over the years, and I've learned so much from so many of you. So I hope you're doing okay as we head toward into the last week of March, and I think you're going to really love my conversations with my guests today. And thank you to everybody who joined me all week. Go back and check out my conversation with Anya Kamenetz and David Daly. Glenn Kirshner and Clint Watson. Bill B. joined me. Maura Quint and Eric Siegel, of course, with our marathon conversation on the Monday show that I'm still hearing from people about. But right now, it's time to get to Derwyn Bunton. Derwyn, like so many other public defenders in our country, to me, is a hero. He's an essential worker. He is everything that we should respect and support and be inspired by. He served as the chief public defender of the Orleans Public Defender for the last 11 years, and as someone who stood next to and in the shoes of people most impacted by the criminal justice system. Now he's the chief defender there, and I've gotten to know him over the last couple of years and learned so much from him, and I thought that he would be a great person to talk to because of his experience and expertise and his understanding of the criminal justice system, about what it means to have Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson be nominated and then eventually, hopefully, be on the Supreme Court herself as a former public defender. I thought that would be a really good conversation, and I thought right. Ladies and gentlemen, learn more about Derwyn in the show notes, and you can find out how to follow him on social media. DerwynBunton.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the chief public defender down in New Orleans, public defenders. Here we go with Derwyn Bunton. Okay, so I've got him on the phone now. Derwyn Bunton, a great honor anytime I get to have a conversation with you. We've got to know you over the years, and I'm really psyched to have you joining me to talk about all of this. Thank you.
No, thank you for inviting me.
First of all, I know you've been, obviously, I'm sure you've been working. You got a family, you're a busy guy, can't keep your ears on the confirmation hearings all day, but from what you've heard of the confirmation hearings of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, how do you feel like she's been treated by the Republican senators? What is your perspective of how she's being treated?
Well, I think she's been treated terribly, but also I expected her to be treated terribly by Republican senators. I think a lot of it has been performative. This is someone who, in her prior role, has been affirmed and reaffirmed as a judge. So I think everyone is well aware that she may be one of the most qualified nominees we've had in a generation. She's actually been in a courtroom as opposed to many of the other justices who sit on the bench and decide the laws of the land. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a spectacle, and it is always reliably disappointing to watch these hearings.
Yeah, that's right. So the difference between Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson and these other judges on the Supreme Court is that she was a public defender like you. What is the difference, though? What is the difference between her role that she has had in the past as a public defender and the prosecutors and others that are on the Supreme Court?
Well, the difference between the public defender role and the prosecutor role is kind of manifest. One is standing shoulder to shoulder with the accused, and one is wielding the power of the state to make sure that person is convicted, prosecuted, is either going to jail or is going to be under supervision. So she's been on this other side of the coin, where she has been in the position to stand and be human with someone in their worst time, and to stand up and draw a line and say that we're going to do this fairly and we're going to put you to your proof. And I am not going to let you trample on the rights of my client, no matter what my client has done. And that is a philosophical shift that she has had to live in professionally that many folks haven't had to do in these positions, because they've always been the strong arm of the government, the people that get clapped for, get stood up for when they walk in rooms, not the people who stand by the most vulnerable and the most unliked or unpopular in different moments. So that's, I think, is a big difference, and should be one that is valued in our system as she goes through it.
Well, as you know all too well, it's not one that's valued. I'm sure. I'd like to think differently, and that you'll surprise me and say, you know what? No, everybody loves the public defender's office and supports us. But how do you generally, you're often defending people accused of pretty bad crimes, and so that's not the best public image, I guess, to have. According to some people. To me, you're doing the most important work out there, but what is that perception? What do you generally hear when you're defending, especially when you're defending someone who's been accused of terrible things?
Well, the role of the public defender is to protect innocence, fight for your client, and hold power accountable. And most of what we do every day, the big part of what we do every day, is getting people in these moments, these vulnerable, poor people, mostly, Black and brown, who have been charged with, sometimes very petty things, sometimes very serious things. We get them to a point where we're moving to accountability, accepting responsibility with dignity, and that's a big part of the role. And I don't think that gets a lot of the airplay for public defenders from time to time, right? We're either in Law and Order, some bumbling sort of idiot lawyer with a bunch of files who can't remember who their client is, or we're sleazy, doing shady things, trying to get someone, who is bad back on the streets.
And you're almost never, ever in a slick suit, right? You're in a disheveled, crappy...
Never. We are a mess every time you see us on TV, right? Like it's stuff don't match, tie isn't tied, buttons aren't all buttoned up on the shirt. And that's just not the reality of public defenders by and large around the country. And I think that narrative really has to change. But they are tapping into that, they being Republicans in these confirmation hearings, they're tapping into that image, that perception that false narrative as a means of attack. And I just think that's false. One of the stories I tell, to motivate our team every now and again, a story, out of the Bible about Matthew and the goats and the sheep. And one of the things in there is when the flock asks, how do we know it's you, Jesus? One of the things that the Bible recites is that because when I was in jail, you came to visit me. And that is something uniquely strong for public defenders. My lawyers, for example, will visit jail in any given year over 6,000 times to see clients. And I guarantee prosecutors aren't doing that, right? They're not doing what my Jesus says gets me to the right hand of the Father, right? So it's one of these, we have a very strong sort of connection to our work, but we don't have that play out historically in public the way I think it should.
So well said, and that's a really interesting parable to illustrate it and to convince people. I wonder, what they're doing with the judge right now is they're accusing her of defending and going soft on the two worst type of human beings, terrorists or accused terrorists, should say, because they haven't even had trials, are the ones at Gitmo, and child sex predators, or those looking at photos, at least, of children and sexual acts, whatever, underage kids. They're clearly choosing. I mean, you as a public defender, you defend people who have committed every sort of crime, but specifically they're going after these two. And I'm not asking for your political analysis. I'm asking for what are their rights? What are the terrorists' rights? What is the accused pedophile's rights? The rapist, the murderer's rights to an attorney?
Well, their rights are the same as yours and mine under the Constitution. They have a right to counsel. They have a right to due process. They have a right to fair proceedings. And the line of attack seems to indicate a disdain for the law, like the Constitution is wrong. And that's just false. I think that no matter what the crime, the rights don't move based on what you're accused of. That is why the constitutional democracy we have has withstood the test of time, because we have principles that do not move. Now, and it hasn't stopped anyone from being prosecuted, hasn't stopped anyone from going to jail. And you can look at the numbers. In fact, we may need to rethink how it's not stopping enough people from going to jail.
Yeah.
But it's those rights, that right to counsel is immovable and predates our republic. Back in March of 1770, there were 8 soldiers who fired on civilians, killing 5 and wounding 6. That was the Boston Massacre, right? Those soldiers were abandoned by the king, and they were horribly unpopular, as you might imagine, up in Boston. There was one lawyer that took their case, and they took their case for free, because this notion of no one should stand accused before the government without counsel was ingrained even in a colonial territory. That person who took their case, of course, was John Adams, who went on to be the second president of the United States. So all of this digging in and talking crazy about who she represents is counter to our history. Our DNA has been from the very beginning. There are rights that don't move, and everyone deserves someone standing next to them, representing them, holding the government accountable.
So well said again, with historical context this time. So, Derwyn, what is it? What are we getting wrong? What are we missing? How is it being cherry-picked, or the narrative being told by Ted Cruz and Senator Hawley, neither of which deserve to be United States senators, much less even in conversation with Ketanji Brown Jackson? When it comes to what they are saying specifically about the sentencing guidelines and how judges end up sentencing these crimes. What are we missing? What are they doing? Why are they doing this, but what are they saying that is being communicated probably inaccurately or cherry picked to create a narrative about these sentencing guidelines?
What they're trying to create is this notion that she's somehow rogue, that she somehow has broken loose from the law. Not simply that she's a public defender, gasp, but she's also someone who has broken loose from the law. And nothing could be farther from the truth. When you look at sentencing guidelines on these cases, her decisions in those cases were based on those individual cases. That, again, is part of our Constitution and our bundle of rights, a neutral and detached arbiter of the law, representation by a lawyer. And when you go through that process, they look at you individually. And I think that is what, again, they're being disingenuous, because neither of them would want anyone looking at them as some cookie cutter man or cookie cutter woman. They want their own individual sort of idiosyncrasies and talents.
I'll call it their brands, their character. I mean, these guys are brands.
They're brands.
Yeah.
They want folks to know who they are. In fact, that's exactly what Ted Cruz said getting on a plane. Do you know who I am?
Yeah. By the way,
Right?
I think their brand is specifically, they might be coming out with a show. Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz, and Josh Hawley coming out with a show called The Unlikables. That's their brand. But you were saying they're doing this to, yeah.
It would be a hit. And they're being disingenuous is the thing. They don't want to be looked at as anything other than individuals. And that's what she did as a judge. And so you use the word cherry pick. That's exactly right. They're trying to say to the public, all of these individuals should have been treated the same, not based on who they are, but because of what they did. Right. What Ted Cruz did at the ticket counter for many of my clients might have put you in cuffs, at least at disturbing the peace.
Yeah.
But he wants you to look at him as Ted Cruz, not one of my clients. And so there's this insidious sort of indication in a lot of that questioning is like, you're being too nice to these people. That is also the sort of an undercurrent in that rubs people like me in particular the wrong way. But what they're trying to say is she's soft because she didn't throw all these people away, when he knows full well, when they all know full well as a judge, it is the individual circumstances of each individual case that decide their individual outcomes.
Right. They all know that. That's such a good point. I mean, Lindsey Graham sitting there having another tantrum 2 days in a row, interrupting Ketanji Brown Jackson over and over and saying, he's like, I would sentence him to 30, 40, 50 years in jail. Put him in jail. Don't give him any jam or any jelly or nothing. That wasn't a direct quote, but that's what I heard him say, basically. And the point being, each one of these cases is a different human being that did a different thing. Do you want to give us an example from your career with one of these types of cases?
Sure. We, as a public defender's office, we handle, thousands of cases a year. And I personally have had pornography involving juveniles case. And it was, again, a real serious case. And it started with, just tons of allegations, right? My client was a young man, though, who was, honestly caught up ogling, pictures on the internet, right? And was caught doing that. He wasn't running out terrorizing people. He got caught up on the internet looking at these images. And of course, had no idea how illegal it was. That was that particular case. And we worked out a resolution where he was able to accept responsibility, move on, like I said, accept responsibility with dignity, and move on with his life. And in other cases, you'll have folks who are gathering and distributing and creating. And those folks are going to deal with much harsher penalties on the outcomes of those cases, right? It is not as simple as they want it to be. You know, dirty pictures, you go to jail for decades. That's not how the law is written. That's not what they ask. And in my particular case with my client, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom at sentencing when talking about my client and what my client went through with that case. And so you really have to be in the room for some of these things to understand how difficult these decisions are and how tough it is on public defenders, prosecutors, and judges at various times.
Well, that's the thing that I really get so upset about, because if you have just a little bit of empathy, and if you've ever talked with someone like yourself, or my friend Laura Coates used to work with these types of sexual assaults against children as well, and if you ask the person, how did it affect you, they're going to give you around the same answer, like permanently. Like it's somehow permanently, you don't get to see those pictures, hear those stories, see the narrative of the crime written down, a description of them, then what happened, and then they did this, and ever kind of escape that. So for a Ted Cruz or anybody to question this judge or you and say, why did you go soft on this person? It's like, dude, I had to relive that like crime, to hear about it, see it, talk to the victim, see the victim. I will never, like, the idea that you would be going, quote, soft on this person. Help me understand what they're not getting as a result of your own experience, Derwyn, seeing and hearing the details and the victims of these crimes.
I mean, it's terrifying. You never really ever forget that and a host of other things, right? When you've gone, I've been a lawyer now for 24 years, and I've done, civil rights and public defense work my entire career. And the things you see, you can't unsee, right? And it's not
right.
It's not simply those cases. It's the crime scene photos from the murder cases. It's the exam photos from sexual assaults. It's the autopsy of the 18-month-old that was beaten to death, right? Those are all real things that we all really have to deal with. And to suggest that that is just something to be dismissive of or has no impact is really insulting. And couple that with the inherent elitism that comes with going soft on someone when you've taken everything they've had in the outcome, right? As a government, when you put someone in jail and label them a sex offender, you have taken a good bit of their life and what they hope to be away. There's nothing soft about prison. That's the other thing that needs to be mentioned in this. There's nothing at all soft about putting anyone in prison. And so it's all these things really manifest an incredible ignorance of how our criminal legal system works, what it does to people, and what punishment means, not just for folks who are surviving the events, but folks who are accused and convicted of perpetrating the events. And I think she represents someone who has that 360 degrees of experience on this. And that's what irks a lot of advocates around the country, is that all of it should be valued and not denigrated.
Right. Yeah, that's really the big point that I wanted to drive home. And in my conversation with you and anywhere I can talk about this, that you can talk about this, is you are denigrating something that should be valued and respected. It just irks me so much when people go out with their fake patriotism and their borderline jingoism, their patriotic porn, as I've heard it called, just waving American flags and using words like freedom and liberty and independence. And yet you're denigrating some of the most unique parts of our Constitution and justice system, like these rights that the accused have and always have had. That's something to be proud of. All right, I'll get off my soapbox, but just the idea that it's being denigrated is garbage. And furthermore, when they're sitting there talking down to her and saying, do you know how bad these crimes are? She and you could say, yes, so much more than you.
I mean, it's true, though. Right? Do you know how bad these crimes are? Did you have to sit in the living room with the mother of your client? Right. And understanding that, and this is what folks don't get, there's like an entire community on the back. That's the back office to a lot of this stuff. My client's, mom, and I'm being with the collective moms here, did not have children hoping one day they were going to be my client. Like, they did not pray every day that they were going to grow up and be charged with some serious offense. And it's my job to talk to them, get information, learn about my client, and a lot of other parts of the system do that too. So that's a big piece that is really gone missing, and that Ted Cruz in particular, should know better. Both he and a number of the senators have law degrees. Ted Cruz was a Supreme Court law clerk, right? He knows what the law. This is what drives me nuts. He knows better. He absolutely knows better.
But you're giving too much credit to him, because he has, for the last decade, been recognized as I would refer to him as just an empty barrel. No principles, no values. So it's like almost wasted, and he should know better. Well, of course we know that's, he's evil. That's how he is. I mean, he's terrible. By the way, I would give $1 billion for his and or Lindsey Graham's internet history.
Well, Ted Cruz, when I say he knows better, because he's been a clerk, he's been in under the tent, so to speak, on a lot of this stuff. But Ted Cruz, I do believe, was also a signatory on a motion on behalf of John Thompson. Like, he worked at the law firm that worked to free and exonerate John Thompson. Like, he's no stranger to this stuff, and to be as horribly disingenuous and performative during these proceedings as he's been is kind of insulting. But also,
from his bio, Senator Ted Cruz was honored to represent John Thompson, a man wrongly convicted of murder.
Yeah, he knows the evils that can be visited upon folks in our system. But also, on the other end of that, I do want to applaud just the absolute grace under which Judge Jackson has held herself out during these hearings. Like, there's one of the memes I saw was likening Kavanaugh to a possum. There were, like, one side were different faces of a possum and matched them with different faces of Justice Kavanaugh. And because he was outraged during his confirmation proceedings. And you contrast that with someone who is just a quintessential arbiter of the law, which is Judge Jackson. That has actually been really satisfying throughout this process.
Do you want to say anything as a black man, as a black lawyer, as a black public defender, as the son of a black woman, about the double standard there and how it might apply even to your life, Derwyn? Don't want to be angry. You're allowed to. Black people are allowed to have all of the emotions but anger, I think. I'm not sure. We're allowing you to have all the rest, but anger is a different one. Brett Kavanaugh's anger was great. Great ratings. Worked for him. But what do you want to say, if anything, about the double standard when it comes to the emotion? Because I just can't believe she hasn't just slammed her hand down on the table and be like, enough.
Well, I amongst my friends, I like to joke. My mama would have never made it through these confirmation hearings.
Right. Most people would. Yeah.
Because she would have threatened to whoop somebody a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because that's the way she sort of grew up tough in East Texas, segregated South. But at the same time, I've also witnessed my mom act with absolute deference and grace in those situations where she knows that there is a different standard. So, I joke about what my mama would have done, but really what my mama would have done was as close to Judge Jackson as she could, because we understand folks, Black folks of color, particularly Black women, understand there's some labels you don't want because you don't advance if you get them. You can't be the angry Black woman. You can't be the angry Black man in your organization, in your law firm. You aren't allowed a full range of emotion because there are different values attached to you expressing it. And all that signals to me is we still have a long way to go, because we, as Black professionals, are still feeling that. I'm hoping there's, the generation we're in and generations to come will allow folks to be more human and universally human, without attaching those sort of values of there's something a little more dangerous about a Black woman who exhibits anger versus a white woman who exhibits anger. There's something a little more dangerous about a Black man who decides to show that he's angry versus a white man who's angry. And for Black men in particular, it'll get you killed on the street. By law enforcement and others, right? Who will then be allowed to say, he was scary to me, he was angry, as a justification, right? So all those things are still working and still playing. It's frustrating. We've got a long way to go. But I think if these confirmation hearings are any indicator, we've got some folks in the pipeline who can handle the pressure, and will be great sort of examples in years to come on how we get to these places and reshape them.
Yeah, really well said. Last thing for you, I think about you guys a lot because I'm most familiar with the lawyers in New Orleans, public defender's office. But I think about how I learned the pandemic affected you, and I'm sure municipalities all around the country, and jury trials have just returned apparently to New Orleans. Do I have that right? After 2-year hiatus, what does this mean? What kind of a backlog are you dealing with? What is your life and the life of those who are accused that you're defending like right now as a result of trying to get back to, quote, normal? I think about that a lot.
Well, we're actually, as lawyers, excited to be able to move a lot of our cases by being able to call up juries. Now, it's limited. We're still moving cautiously in our system, but jury trials are back. Jury trials are a way to inject a community's conscience into the proceedings, allow the public to take a look at the processes. And it resolves your toughest cases. It resolves your cases with the biggest sentences on the other side, the most evidence in dispute. And without the jury trial as a tool, those cases back up. Your serious cases back up. Right. Your complex cases back up. And I was just looking at data, in fact, today about the most serious cases. So in our system, the most serious cases, of course, are folks who remain in jail. And we had done a very good job of keeping our jail population down, but it's beginning to creep back up because of this backlog. We can't move the most serious cases. And of course, the most serious cases have most of those folks in jail. And so the average length of stay has shot up on those serious cases to almost 1,200 days. That's the average length of stay.
Wow.
For those cases right now. That means because of the pandemic and its backlogs, you've already done nearly 4 years by the time we get you to trial right now. And that's what we're looking at. That's what the kind of backlog, that's what that backlog means in just real numbers. And we are, fighting like hell, trying to get our clients to have their days in court.
Well, Derwyn, I can't thank you enough for talking to me today. Whenever you do, I always learn so much, and really, I think helps me and anybody listening gain a much better perspective on all of it. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, for what you do every day, pal. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me again. Anytime.
All right, there he goes, Derwyn Bunton. Go support him, follow him on social media, and thank you so much, Derwyn. It was so great, man. I really appreciate him joining the conversation. I learned so much from him. Thanks again. Shout out to Barksdale Hortenstein Jr., longtime listener, supporter of my work here, because I wouldn't know about him and so many others down there without him. And now it's time to move on to our final guest of the week, the final conversation of the week here on Stand Up. And oh, what a week it has been here on the show and in your life. And I'm so happy to have you along for the journey. Christian Finnegan and Ophira Eisenberg are two of my favorite stand-up comedians who I came up in the New York City comedy scene along with, and I am so happy that we get to catch up almost every week here on the show. All three of us, you can see us live in Beacon, New York, on April 3rd at the Howland Arts Center. There is a link to buy tickets in the show notes, so please check that out. And if you know anybody in that area north of New York City, then on the east side of the Hudson, then tell them to come see us. And it's going to be a really fun show. We talk a little bit about it, give you a little preview of it. Follow them on social media at Christ Finnegan, at Ophira E. Ladies and gentlemen, Christian Finnegan, Ophira Eisenberg. Oh, Finnegan!
I was going to say something nice, but I thought I should save it.
Oh, okay.
Because if I say it now and then we bring it up later, you've already figured out ways to shit on my niceness. I leave you in limbo. You don't know which way to go.
Well, here they are, Ophira and Christian now joining me. And this is a song recommended by Christian with his new newsletter, and I'm talking over it and ruining it.
Kind of a slow burn. Go down to the...
That's Goodbye, Mr. Blue, and you can learn more about it by subscribing to New Music for Olds, Christian Finnegan, and Ophira Eisenberg. Ophira, what do you want to say about New Music for Olds before we let him speak?
So Christian, I'm now just talking about you're not here, Christian, along with just recommending music there, he writes a little opinion and where you should listen to the music, like suggested settings or what's a good time to listen to it. And then there was also just a story kind of about your life and some photos of your past. And it is so rare, may I say, that I read an email below the subject line. Because we're just inundated.
Yes.
And, and I read the entire thing because every line made me want to read the next line.
Yes.
And it was hilarious. And I did not know, there's a photo of young Christian where you're self-deprecating in a great way, talk about some music that you were listening to, but what did you say something like, what did I know? I was wearing is it Tibetan smoking hat?
Smoking cap, I believe.
Cap.
Tibetan smoking cap.
And
yes.
and then a photo of yourself very jauntily happy in the cap. And I know exactly that cap. And I remember when a lot of people wore them, but I had no idea it was a smoking cap. And I was so happy to learn that piece of information.
And let me just
I honestly had to look it up. I just looked up Tibetan cap, and then when I finally found a picture of it, it was in the section of Tibetan smoking caps, and then that the floodgates unleashed.
And let me just tell you. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chris. Ophira.
I was just going to say it brought me back to a time of fashion in the 90s where there was a high level of cultural appropriation / import-export business happening from Tibet and Nepal, and also South America, like Peru, Guatemala.
Yeah,
and it was all
it's an
thrown
era
in
that
the same
nobody
basket.
remembers. Yeah, everybody thinks it went from like hair metal to grunge with like nothing in between.
No,
It went straight from like, acid wash to like grungy flannels. And no, there was that weird late 80s, early 90s sort of period where it was a lot of Bajas.
Yeah.
I wore like a puka shell necklace for a while. There was a lot of Tibetan stuff. And obviously
stuff.
Adam Rauch from Beastie Boys had something to do with that, with his campaigning on behalf of Tibet. That was a little later. But yeah, it's an untapped reservoir of fashion looks.
So the only thing I was going to add was
thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say.
I'm just annoyed by how well formatted you figured out this format. So, like, it's supposed to, like, new things are supposed to take a while to get good, but this is the way that you format your newsletter, New Music for Olds, and everybody should subscribe, is real fun. And I understand what Ophira is saying, because I too did a thing I normally don't do, which is use my finger to scroll down.
I know, it's such a weird thing.
I was like, oh, what's next? It's really good. It's not like other newsletter. It's like nothing I subscribe to. And it's also something that introduces me to new stuff that I really have no idea about. I just love it. I want this to be a huge hit. And
I'm blushing. Thank you. I am very much enjoying doing it. And even though I'm the slowest writer in the world,
and at the very end, there's a picture of Christ reaching out his hand, and then the caption below it that says, is the very last thing almost. It says, leave a comment, says hung over Jesus. You can't do it justice by describing it, but the newsletter ends at a huge laugh with a picture of Jesus who looks like, yes, in fact, he had been maybe out drinking.
I've been obsessed with that picture of Jesus because, there was I've
never heard someone start a sentence with that.
I've been obsessed with that. Well, clearly you've never been below the Mason-Dixon. But I am obsessed with that picture because I remember in college there was a philosopher that I read. I don't want to act like I read this in my private casual reading time, Ludwig von Feuerbach. And I remember one of the things he talked about is he was basically an atheist, but he wrote about how basically every culture creates an image of God that reflects what they think the perfect person looks like and is like that their envisionment of God is a compilation of the qualities they believe a person should have. And it made me think of that painting because, depictions of Jesus have evolved over the course of hundreds of centuries. And, sometimes his hair is longer, sometimes his hair is shorter, sometimes he's more effeminate looking, sometimes he's more masculine. And it's so clear to me that whoever is doing these paintings is clearly portraying Jesus as like an anti-vaxxer trucker convoy guy. Because first of all, his beard has gray in it. Jesus was 32, 33 when he died. Like this guy, he literally, you could put a pair of Oakley shades and put him in the front seat of a car and he could be like shooting one of those dumb angry rant videos about Hillary Clinton or something.
And it's a little straggly. Like, it's a little like, he looks like a little, it's like unkempt. It's like, I don't have time to wash.
I would have subscribed
not a clean Jesus.
I would have
not clean Jesus.
Unkempt.
It's not.
Yeah. I would have subscribed to your newsletter just for this picture and caption. Hung over Jesus. Those are also two words I never saw next to each other.
I think I made a lot of wine.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Yeah, it's.
So what are you going to do? Not drink it? Yeah, exactly.
Should mention that we're all going to be performing on April 2nd. That's a Saturday in Beacon, New York at the Howland Center, the three of us together. And at the end of the program, Ophira, we're doing a thing. We're doing a little bit of a bit. You want to tell people, because this is going to be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're calling our outfit right now Smart Mouth. That's the name of our outfit. We're an outfit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
We're
basically movement. We are going to invite the audience before the show and perhaps during, if they have a thought, to write down on a little slip of piece of paper that we provide if, they want any advice from a smart mouth. Smart mouth always has an answer. And then at the end, we're going to basically, it's anonymous. We're going to go through and offer our expert advice based on
if you're listening to this
experience and
podcast,
smarts.
it's pretty clear that there aren't questions we don't have answers for.
We know what we're talking about. Yeah, exactly. So, and about anything. I mean, anything.
It could be from nuclear proliferation
diet,
to relationships to, yes, the future of driving.
We could answer questions about your past. Oh my goodness. I just have to say that we got angry at my son, who's 6, because he left a jacket at school, right? And I was like, Lucas, you cannot leave your jacket at school. Like, you have to be in charge of your stuff. And my husband got really upset at him. And he was like, I don't want you guys to be so mad at me. And we were like, okay. And he was like, why, Dad? He said, why are you so mad at me, Dad? And my husband goes, it's because I was like you. When I was a little kid, I forgot things all the time. And it's plagued me my entire life. And I don't want you to be the same way. Oh. And my son goes, wait, you're getting mad about me because of you in the past?
Oh, so great.
Man, that really cuts right to it, doesn't it?
Yes.
That is the story of every parent and every child.
I was like, that is all of what I'm mad at all the time.
Yeah.
I'm never mad at like the moment. I'm mad about something that reminds me of me in the past that is happening again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're reminded of what a piece of shit you were. And
well, when you see your failures, your weaknesses, your flaws in your kids, you want them. It's an instinct. I completely resonates with me. I've said the same thing over and over to the girls. Do as I say, not as I do. Don't leave messes, and don't do this. I like that, but I also, that's a smart mouth answer on that, boy.
That's a smart mouth answer right there. So not only come to the show, everyone, come with questions that you need resolved. Yeah. You need closure on.
How about this question? What do you guys think of this? This is someone tweeted this. I won't say who it is because I like him and I respect him and I know him, so I'm not going to identify him. But he says, what'd you say?
Ted Cruz.
I just said he said, I've just started identifying as queer over the past 4 months, and then he writes that he actually is only attracted to women, a wide range of women, but not men at all. So I don't know how to exactly identify myself, even though I haven't felt straight in years. And I am digging all into this, and I want to examine it because I know no one here necessarily identifies as queer. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about it, but I don't like this at all. I don't like this at all. Words matter. And
totally agree.
I can't say, as Ted Cruz wants to say, that I'm Asian. And I think the gender issue is different, and I think sexual orientation different. But say what you are, but you can't say you're queer if you're not. There's a clear what do you? Let's take this one on, and then we'll have maybe some fun with something. But what do you think of this? I'm obsessed with this right now because I'm being told that it's a thing with younger people, and it can't be. I say.
I mean, as an Indigenous person, I feel that, no, I'm not Indigenous. But what if I said right now, this is the whole point I'm going to make. If I said right now, I'm not Indigenous people, but you know what? I've had certain struggle that makes me identify with as somewhat Indigenous. And I have an old soul. I don't know. You know what I'm doing? I'm silencing. It is the definition of silencing. Right now is like, the queer population is up in arms right now with what is going on with language and words that you are allowed to say. This is not a time for someone who is like grappling with whatever identity thing to have a few characters on Twitter to start spouting about an identity that they haven't grasped that has nothing to do with however we are defining.
Well, I'm glad you're indignant.
Silencing queer people.
I'm attracted to a wide range of women, but not men.
Thanks a lot, dude.
Wide range of women.
But not men at all.
Like you should be. I even like non-white women. Like, is that what that means? Like, what does that mean?
Just thinking, my new cap is 40, and I'm considering brunettes.
Yeah. So, okay. Anything you'd add, Christian? I'm attracted to a wide range of women, but not men at all. I'm queer.
I don't know. Yes. I mean, obviously it rings as awkward to me. I think that I would like to hear the opinion of somebody who really understands the arcane ins and outs of these things, because I do know that, like, I remember people saying that LGBTQ, that Q stood for questioning, or
I did not know that.
I mean, I've heard that. I've heard all sorts of things. And sometimes I do get frustrated with the sort of bleeding edge of gender identity politics, because they act as if these rules are clear and people understand them.
Right.
But I'm not even sure that they do.
Right.
Like, I'm not even sure that anybody understands what the ins and outs of these things are and what counts and what doesn't. And it wouldn't be nice if we could all kind of get together, or have them have 10 people who know what they're talking about get together and release some sort of handbook or, one pager to just be like, here's what these words mean. Here's what they don't. Here's who should be using them. Here's who shouldn't be using them. Because honestly, anytime this stuff comes up, I do my first instinct is whatever. Sure. I can't keep up with whether I'm supposed to be supporting you or angry at you.
If you want to know what people who identify as queer think about this guy's tweet, just read the thousands of quotes around this tweet. And there are plenty that are absolutely hilarious, including this woman who writes, if a man ever told me that he was queer because he was attracted to a, quote, wide range of women, I would simply shit on his porch.
Hey, I'll go one step further. I feel that men who have this is how old school of a feminist I am. Mm-hmm. If a man has to really make the point to me that he's a feminist, I'm going to assume he's going to roofie my drink.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I've known so many of those dudes.
Yeah.
So many of those dudes.
Yeah.
Like,
I've
I'm
always
Mr. Feminist guy. And
I've always been hesitant to use the word in reference to myself.
Well, that's why you constantly talk about how much you hate feminists. Like, you go the other route. You prove your allyship by outwardly
I'm selling
feminists,
which forces me to plug my no feminist t-shirts. I have just a circle with a cross through the word. But you can get them right now at standupwithpete.com if you want.
I would just like to put it out there that I'm attracted to a very small margin of men.
That makes you the straightest person alive.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm attracted to man. I love when people, have you ever had someone do this to you? Our age, when the girls were young, I'll never forget, this woman said, well, I don't look at anybody but my husband. And I asked her to leave. I was like, what are we doing? Like, what are you? I only have eyes for my husband. I'm like, okay, all right. I'm not allowed to say that another woman is attractive. Like, people are still, even people our age are still that kind of insecure and jealous. It's the most bizarre thing. It's something.
Garbage.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, the tribute that you give to your spouse or to the person that you love is the acknowledgement that there are other attractive people in the world and that you're foregoing that on some level, or that you're not going to lean into it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it's like, I notice attractive, beautiful women all the time. I don't linger on it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, oh, there's a hot chick, moving on with my day.
My favorite tribute is a dead fawn.
Oh, that's very bold.
Yeah.
Like freshly dead?
Yeah, freshly dead. Every Friday. That's my tribute. No, but I totally agree. Do you play the game? I have a thing about this. The game like, oh, if I could sleep with anyone, do you guys?
Oh, the bucket list, whatever.
With my wife?
Yeah.
Yeah, since the day I met her. Yes, I mean we have all kinds of conversations about that. Yes, for sure.
Christian?
No. No, we don't. Cambry and I just when we first started dating, I did not know how to be in a long-term relationship. I had never really been in one. And I never cheated on my wife or anything like that. But But I definitely, in the first 6 months of dating, I kind of always had like a back burner list in my mind of if this blows up, then I know who I'm going to try to go for next or whatever.
I love a plan B.
Yeah. And Cambry was very jealous when we first started dating. And we both had to kind of change, obviously I changed. We've been together 20 some odd years, but, for me, it's not something that it's not a course of discussion with us. Like obviously she understands that other women are attractive, and I assume that she finds other men attractive. She doesn't really talk about that kind of thing, but that's not something we like wallow in and talk for us. I mean, I know that other couples may, but we don't.
It's actually all we do.
Yeah. Well, that's its own kink. That's a form of kink.
Yeah. I mean, in my relationship, I was just like, I do not care. I mean, Susan Preckle, a friend and a stand-up, has the best joke on this of all time. But I was just like, I don't need to know that you want to sleep with, or given the chance you want to sleep with, I don't know, Anne Hathaway. Bad thing. I'm just thinking of people who have been in, or Natalie Portman, people who have been in Star Wars characters. I'm thinking of my husband, actors that have been in Star Wars. But it's like, I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. Say it all you want in your brain. Don't do it out of your mouth.
But to be clear, there's a difference between I want to sleep with that person and, oh my God, that guy's hot. Or, I'm always interested in who Val or any woman or man, anybody thinks is attractive. Like my daughters, do you think that guy is good looking? And I'll be like, I think that guy's really good looking. And the girls will be like, ugh.
I know, it is baffling to me what women find attractive sometimes. Like when I'm just baffled, utterly stumped. Like, oh my God, I don't understand women at all. At all.
My daughter's like, Dad, he has one eye and no teeth. I'm like, whatever. I think that shows that he's a rugged individualist.
See, you're getting back to that whole sort of goatee, Oakley shade, angry Trump sort of character. What I wonder is like, are there women out there who go for that specifically? I want a dude who's just got a dumb goatee and wears wraparound shades and a stupid baseball hat with the brim folded way too far.
I think that
clearly so many men dress like that some women must literally think that is hot.
I think that small towns, and I'm being a little serious, limit.
I love this elitism right now. Yeah, come on, bring it on.
They limit. It is. Is it elitism? I think it is. I think it's a fact.
Well, I mean, it just means you're talking about a smaller pool of people.
When every guy in town is exactly the same, or every woman is exactly the same, this is who you. To some extent, there's a comfort level. But it's
you have access to media. Other types of men exist out there.
They don't live here. They're not at the bowling alley.
Yeah, and I also think you end up. Unless you have a really kind of creative brain, no, you're attracted for what's around you, the familiarity. Yeah. And on top of that, who do you end up really being attracted to? The person who you perceive likes you. That's it. Then you're sort of like, well, I don't know, maybe that wraparound guy is smiling at me.
Who do you end up being attracted to? The people who make you feel bad the way your parents did.
That's true. That's true.
That's
who you end up marrying.
Marrying. Yes.
How do you two high-level, well-known performers feel about the mayor of your city making apparently an exception for performers and athletes who have not gotten vaccinated to be able to perform? Does that affect comedians and people on Broadway, or is it just for Aaron Judge and Kyrie Irving?
Right, exactly. I think, listen, it's ridiculous. I don't even like the fact that you don't have to show your vaccination pass to get into an event anymore. And why for comedy? Why? Because it's the science aside, I liked knowing that everyone in that room kind of believes in science.
Yeah, you're right. Yes, that I agree with.
That's interesting. Yeah,
that it was a bit of a positive gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was
there's no other
at the bare minimum.
There's no other way to have a threshold test like that on someone's view on anything like race or gender or anything else. But at least I know this person doesn't believe that the earth is flat. And why does that matter to the comedian? Because my material, the things I'm going to say might not appeal to someone who thinks the moon is made of cheese.
That's right, because I am forced, due to playing in a club, to play to whoever walks. I'm here to help sell beer,
Right?
And
right.
so we don't write material for every person. That would be insane. Someone does. I'm sure some comedian out there writes material for.
It's really, we've discussed this before, I know, but it's been hard since Trump won to know. I mean, you always knew that there were people in the audience who didn't think the way you thought, and that was fine. But it's like to know that there are people like actively who want to destroy democracy, who would gleefully sign up for a Trump dictatorship, or a Ron DeSantis banana republic government. To know that those people are in the audience, it's like, I don't want to entertain those people. Like, I really don't. I mean, I will, because that's the job. But it's like, man, I don't want to give those people laughter. I just don't.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and again, I have no idea if this is a exception or part of this conversation, but I was expressing this exact viewpoint to one of the comedy club bookers in New York, and they're like, listen, I got to tell you, we stopped asking for those vaccination passes. The next day was the first time we had to throw people out of a show.
Hilarious.
I was like,
hilarious.
I'm sorry, but what does that mean for that they were misbehaving?
Yeah, they were misbehaving. They got drunk and they were they were disruptive.
Yeah.
Disruptive, out of control.
You just got a more genteel average audience member back when the vaccinations
were really
being.
does.
Yeah. Again, there's no one. This is purely anecdotal, but it matched up exactly like that.
That is crazy. Okay, did you? And can we talk just a bit here at the end about the confirmation hearings? Did you watch them? What did you think about them? Who's your favorite Republican senator? And then, of course, I do want to ask you both on a scale from 1 to 10, how religious are you?
I think they should just cut to the chase and just have a cardboard cutout of the nominee and put that at a chair, because like the most unnecessary person in those entire hearings is, well, at least this time around, is the actual nominee, because it's just, it's a stage. It's a stage for Republicans trying to make their bona fides by going off and preening and doing their stupid peacock shit.
One of the most interesting strategies, and where does this apply anywhere else in life? Did you see when Lindsey Graham was screaming at her about how would she feel if she were treated like Brett Kavanaugh? And she was like, you guys have been nice to me. I don't know what to tell you. Like, imagine someone saying that. How would you feel if we were asking you this and that? She's like, I don't know what to tell you.
As if they found stuff like that to ask her about that they wouldn't have.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They would be totally armed.
Trust me. Like the fact that they've had to resort to QAnon kiddie porn shit. It's like, I assumed that their only strategy was basically just going to be saying Kentanji, like 50 times. Like just have we mentioned that her name is weird? But yeah, I mean, I don't have a need to watch those things live. I'll watch the 5-minute summation at the end of the day.
I too. We throw the news on at night often, and I was like, I can't even watch this, because I felt like it was just theatrics. I think it was the best way to. But I was like, this is so gross. This is like watching some sort of like the worst version of reality television, and by that I mean it was not the news. It was the worst version of reality television. Like I was just like, can I just watch some stupid people like try to vie for love on an island? Because that will seem intellectual in comparison to what's going on right now.
It's a weird thing to say to somebody that they're insensitive about the horror that they've lived with in their life. And that's what they were saying to her. That's the thing that upset me so much, is that if you deal in any kind of, child sexual assault, if you're a judge, law enforcement officer, investigator, journalist or therapist, you see these pictures, you hear these narratives, and she's heard hundreds of them, and then they're going, I guess you just don't care. I guess you just don't care about the kids. And she never slammed her fist on the table and screamed, enough is enough. And Brett Kavanaugh did.
I don't remember her ever saying what goes around comes around, which is something that should have disqualified Kavanaugh, regardless of whether you thought about Brett Kavanaugh.
He did. That's the first time I've
he literally said that.
I forgot that. You just reminded. That was the most reprehensible.
Wild.
Yep. Do you like to drink beer? Remember, he asked, I think, Amy Klobuchar.
Yeah.
That question. She couldn't do that. I guess she couldn't do any of those antics because she's a black lady.
But again,
right,
and I'm not the only person to say this, and I'm reading this mostly anecdotally, but just other than Cory Booker, like, has anybody even really sort of come to her defense and taken this shit head on? I mean, it's one of these things where it's like the Republicans just, they act like, angry clowns, like drunken clowns. And then the Democrats try to keep things sensible and we're trying to reach across the aisle. And then the framing in the press is that, like, Ketanji Brown, like, Ketanji Brown Jackson, like, she has something to do with kiddie porn. We don't know what it is. And so they win by just making that association in the public's mind. They know she's going to get confirmed. They just want to tar her reputation from here moving forward so that she's not thought of as being a quote unquote real Supreme Court justice.
Did you,
and with the righteous anger becomes followers, because people are like, I'm angry too. It's so much easier, right? That's just like the easy fish in a barrel. Gather. What are we angry about? Whatever. We're angry about being angry.
Yeah. We're angry first. Just tell us what the reason is.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
she's bad.
Ted Cruz was pretty angry at the airport apparently the other day, and apparently he did utter the phrase that we all should be so sensitive to. Do you know who I am? Now, Christian, I know you say... Unfortunately,
we do.
I do want to come and workshop the answers that you give when you find out that Ted Cruz is the one that's saying that. Do you know who I am? Yes, I do. Yeah. I do. And
but I have no idea that you're a United Senator, but sir, I can definitely tell you I know who you are.
We're all surprised, Ted. We're all surprised.
I mean, at some point, the airport person at the gate must have been like, "We don't have flights to Cancun, sir. You're." I know, right? I mean, that joke seemed to be pretty
How many
obvious.
vacations
it was weird that he had
can
zinc
one guy
oxide
take?
all over his nose.
Why was he in sunscreen in Montana? Okay, so anything else about the hearing that we want to rant about? I mean, it was it was interesting that the war got knocked off the headlines for the day. But what else is there in news this week? Anything else that you guys were paying attention to, upset by, happy, joyous about, including spring is here?
It's so hard to not, you don't want to watch like what's going on in Ukraine. You don't want to root for it like it's a sports team, and everything. But it's hard to not get a bit of a angry boner when you hear that like Ukraine might be like taking territory back from the Russians. Right. And, it's hard to not be like, fuck. Like, I consider myself to be a very peace loving, conscientious objector type person, but it's hard not to be like, yeah, fuck them, get them,
of course. The bully.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's going to come at the cost of thousands and thousands of lives and countless ruined lives, even if people aren't dead. But I hope that those reports are true.
It's something about it, though. It's always the same thing happened to America, and I bet you a lot of the world felt this way. I didn't quite feel this way as an American who identified and talked with veterans all the time. I could never feel this way, but it's like, of course, like people were rooting for a lot for America to get their asses kicked in Iraq because of what the hell were we doing there? And so in this case, it's way worse and way less confusing, I think, and to some extent. Maybe I'm wrong. But the aggressor here is the big bully on the block, and he's getting his ass kicked. And there's something, all the experts didn't predict this, and there's something about that too, which I think is appealing. Anytime the bully gets his ass kicked,
all the experts,
all
of the experts, top men,
former generals, they're experts,
former generals, absolutely,
national security experts,
all the experts.
We have a guy that comes on the show. He's a fan of both yours, named Bill Boyle, and he runs parking garages in Washington, D.C. And my audience preferred...
D.C.?
My audience prefers his analysis over almost all of the national security experts that I have on the show.
I think that is exactly correct. Your audience is correct.
Really smart, educated guy, and a lot of what he has said was going to happen has happened, and so it's
there's obviously having experience in a related field is important, and you don't want to dismiss expertise and knowledge and all of those things. But sometimes I feel like a lot of the, I don't want to say so-called experts because they're experts, but a lot of the experts can get kind of blind. They get so in the weeds that they don't maybe see the sort of clearer psychological truths of a situation. I'm talking out my ass a little bit here, but I think that it's like, if you're completely, troop movements and this number of smart bombs and this number of dumb bombs or whatever, you might not maybe appreciate how much just a country, an angry country not wanting to fucking have its sovereignty taken away from it, how much that can change the calculus of a situation, that it's not pieces on a chessboard, that these are real people, and sometimes narratives change.
Right. It's the emotions. It's not the data. It's the emotions. I mean, that's the thing. It's just sort of like data. Right.
I think it's almost simpler than that to analyze in this way. And because the experts on insurgencies, meaning, when you go into somebody else's country with your army, you almost always lose. You almost always lose. And the reason is the same reason that if I went to Ophira's house and went through her drawers and rearranged her shit, she would have more of an incentive to kick my ass than I do to even be there. It's why am I in your home? What are you doing? Right. You don't know the way around. Get out, asshole. Okay.
Yeah. Right. And that is not where the glasses go.
It's true. True.
I don't come in and clean up. I come in and mess up.
Oh, I like the idea of you cleaning up. I was like, why was the cutting board there?
Apparently your version of an invasion is someone comes in and puts shit in places it doesn't belong, but at least they're putting it away.
Put it away.
Some male, female, husband, wife cliches are true. And I think one of them is, and I can tell that Ophira is like this, just like my wife is that my wife will decide that the cutting board goes in a certain place.
Yes.
I'm never consulted on this. It's just, and then I put it somewhere else and she'll say, that's not where it goes. Like, well, when was the big commission to decide where the cutting board goes? It seems like it just ended up someplace, and that in your mind is now the official.
Oh, I'm sorry. You need a commission?
No, but I'm just saying, it's like, we never had this discussion.
That reminds me of when my wife was like, you don't sleep in this room anymore.
Like, this is not your bedroom.
You know what doesn't belong here? You.
I was like, where do I? She's like, I don't care, but not here. Right? Doke. So then
in the doghouse.
So trundle bed.
The trundle.
Well, listen, this has been a fantastic conversation as always. What else do I want to ask you? Is there anything else we want to say?
You asked about religious religious rating.
Yeah, right before we get off the air, we definitely should dive into the nature of God and existence and all that.
I think that's right for discussion.
I asked about your how religious are you? Religious ranking.
Yeah, that's what she was asked.
So forgive me. That was of course in reference to Lindsey Graham's question to the judge, which was the best opportunity she had as a comedian. You can't help but look at those opportunities, knowing that they're almost never going to be taken in these situations. But in her situation, when he said in a scale from 1 to 10, she had a lot of different ways she could have taken that. But what an insane question, unconstitutional. You're not allowed. If you ask that in a job interview, it's illegal. You can't ask someone their religion, much less. This was the biggest job interview in the world. And he went ahead with it. But so, where do you rank yourselves? 1 to 10? How does, what does it mean to be?
I'm going to say 10, but I'm not going to tell you what side is what.
Right. Yeah. That's one way to take it.
0, but I'm not going to tell you what side.
Oh, I don't think you can be.
Well, it's been like, the how religious are you and how often and how active are you in an organized church are two very different questions.
That's right. And also age. I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm getting more desperate. So probably I'm going to start believing more.
No atheists in foxholes or in line for prescriptions at CVS.
That's right. That's right. The older you get, the more that you're looking for what? Meaning life after death stuff? That's the
answers, community, people who pretend to be your friends.
As you tumble down the well, you are grasping for any sort of foot or handhold.
Before his heart surgery, Christian actually went to a mosque, a synagogue, and a church, which I thought was really covering the.
It was like Annie Hall, Woody Allen and Annie Hall.
Were either of you? We've never talked about this. Were either of you ever religious, much less very religious, much less a believer like I was, or even a believer?
A believer. I was raised in a pretty, for Jews, pretty non-religious house. I think because my parents were both through World War II. So my mother would regularly say something like, oh yeah, praying to God, that will do you a lot of good. Keep praying.
Wow.
Really? Really?
That's hilarious.
Interesting. No, that's certainly the perspective that a lot of people share. But
I grew up in a pretty religious. My uncle was a Catholic priest, a pretty well-known one in the Boston area. And he used to have mass in my grandmother's living room, and my brothers and I would do the readings and all that jazz. And I went to church and CCD, and then in the middle of my confirmation process, I became a raging, annoying atheist. Like one of the ones like, let me tell you how wrong you are.
Yeah,
and, which was especially awkward because my dad was the confirmation teacher.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, it was really bad form for me to do that, But yeah, I made a big fucking stink about it. Wow. I don't believe in your Jesus.
That's awesome.
Have you talked about that?
I like you more.
In any of your stand-up that time?
Yeah, a little bit. I talked a little bit about it, and not in those direct on my last out, not the Show Your Work, but the one before that, 60% Joking. I couldn't remember the name of it. I talked a little bit about that stuff, but yeah, haven't gotten into it in full.
Oh, I love that. I'd love to hear. I want to meet that kid who turns on everybody, and his dad's a confirmation hearing. But the elephant in the room, obviously, is your Catholic priest uncle that was well known. Is he one of the good ones?
No, he didn't.
He's one of the good ones? Or?
Although he was a canon lawyer, which is like a lawyer within the Catholic Church, not like civil proceedings, like just Catholic Church proceedings. And he did defend some of those. He was basically like a public defender within the Catholic Church system of some of those pedophile priests.
Ah,
wow. Busy.
He's a shuffler. He shuffled them around.
But he was, they have the same way a public defender, like everyone has the right to representation, like that sort of deal. But he was considered a liberal, although he was less so as I got older. That's for sure.
Oh,
but in his day, he was apparently kind of in the running to maybe be like a archbishop or something like that. But he told it was never going to happen because he was too liberal. So
is he still around?
Huh?
Is he still around?
No, he passed away like 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, that's interesting. Interesting factoid about you.
Oh, and he also, this is super weird. There's a newspaper article, and he never told me this. Apparently, there was a guy who was going to kill his wife and kids and called my uncle, and my uncle kept him on the phone for like 3 hours and convinced him to not do it, and like until the police could get there.
It was your father.
It was. I was at that point. I was tied together with an appliance cord.
Wow, that's
yeah.
But I think it's an interesting idea that I'm like about to kill someone, and I make a call to be like, "Do you think?"
What do you think? Pro con? Where do you fall on whether I should kill my wife and children?
You're a priest. Where are you on this?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
really?
Well, what was she wearing?
I mean, how annoying is she? Let's be real here.
Oh, that's fascinating. All right, guys. Well, this was great. As always, we covered a lot. I love you guys. I love talking to you. Can't wait to be with you on stage in just a few more days. April 2nd.
No matter what you believe in, you can come to the show.
No matter what you believe in, no matter what your question, we will have the right answer at the end of the show for any question. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait.
Live and in person. Looking forward to it.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh, there
there they go. Really do want to recommend subscribing to Christian's newsletter. It's free, so just go subscribe it. It'll make his day. Every new subscription makes you happy when you see them. If it's a paid subscription, even better. But newmusicforolds.substack.com. Definitely check that out. Do yourself a favor. I think it's worth it. newmusicforolds.substack.com. And of course, Ophira Eisenberg. Go subscribe to all of her stuff on social media. Follow her there. She's great on Instagram. And let her know that you heard her here on the show. And I hope that you will come see all three of us in Beacon, New York. Tell your friends, folks. Come on, it's going to be an awesome show, and you can see her and Christian performing all over New York City, and maybe even me. All right, out of time for today's show. I do have to warm up the audience tomorrow on Last Week Tonight. I hope you're watching that on HBO. I haven't been talking about that much, but if you're in New York and you want to come see that, maybe I can get you some tickets if you're there on a Saturday taping day. All right, that's it. John Carroll, sing us out. Folks, have an awesome, awesome weekend, and I can't wait to talk to you on Monday. Tell your friends. StandUpWithPete.com, and keep trying to be the change you want to see in the world. Now I've got to get back out to my retainer.
It's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to your town, just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up. We got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up. You got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well, and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.